reluctantly crouched at the starting line. Engines pumping and thumping in time. The green light flashes, the flags go up. Churning and burning, they yearn for the cup. They deftly maneuver and muscle for rank. Fuel burning fast on an empty tank. Reckless and wild, they pour through the turns. Their prowess is potent and secretly stern. As they speed through the finish, the flags go down. The fans get up and they get out of town. The arena is empty, except for one man still driving and striving as fast as he can. The sun has gone down and the moon has come up. And long ago somebody left with the cup. But he's driving and striving and hugging the turns and thinking of someone for whom he still burns. He's going the distance. He's going for speed.
Welcome to Talking Giants, presented by DraftKings. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick. We got our mailbag, our first mailbag of the offseason. Our schedule's a little off. We're usually Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But because we had a Thursday night game, it's Friday, Tuesday, Friday. So we got a good amount of questions. Justin, how are you doing?
Bobby Skinner, yeah, the Thursday night game's throwing me off. I want to think it's later in the week than it actually is, but sucks to suck. It's only Monday when we're recording this. But I'm feeling interesting about this Giants team, and I don't know if we're going to touch on it in this mailbag at all, as this motion that I just made with my hands near my man boobs was quite interesting if anybody wants to gif it. So I'm feeling weirdly, blindly optimistic about this Giants team because of my optimistic emotions about this offense. How are you?
I'm not feeling great. I think we're 0-2 and 0-2 as a whole, and we can't expect the division to be bad every year. That's where I'm at, and I'm getting annoyed because I have to have my phone open. The reason I have my phone open and you're hearing notifications is because I'm about to read the new Patreons. We got Logan downing. He's really downing the mood since he's been a Patreon. Nothing good's happened since he's joined.
Wow.
DK stands for Donkey Kong or DraftKings, presented by DraftKings. We got Andrew, no last name, just plain old Andrew. Mm-hmm. We got Cheyenne Dietz, maybe like our third or fourth like female patron. So how about that, Cheyenne?
We have a YouTube subscriber and commenter whose name is Cheyenne, and I wonder if there's any
Cheyenne.
relation.
I think that's probably Cheyenne. We got Jim Shea, Shea's Concrete, Rich Oval. We got Stylish Llama. I just don't think it's Komate Yama. Bradley Hines 57, Hines Ward. Remember that when that one Boston radio person said that Julian Edelman has the same Hall of Fame case as Hines Ward, and Hines Ward has like 50 more touchdowns?
Huh.
John M. M, and the M stands for miserable. Tahal Naik and Sean Alisi. Justin, who are these people who have only been we haven't won a game since they've joined?
Well, there's a lot of patrons who haven't witnessed a win since they've signed up to be a Patreon member. And Bobby Skinner's wearing a sweatshirt right now. Guarantee it's like 85 degrees in Florida, and he's talking about being miserable. And you can be miserable with us, but most notably celebrate victory when you come hang out with us on Sunday as we react to the games. You can be miserable or celebrate victory with us when you go to patreon.com/talkinggiants. $2 a month plus some other tiers if you want to support. $2 a month, patreon.com/talkinggiants. Bobby will send you a free magnet, and you get entered into some shirt raffles, and you get to hang out with us as we record the podcast. Patreon.com/talkinggiants.
All right. Before we get into the mailbag, did you see that Kenny Golladay admitted that he was yelling at Jason Garrett?
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it on the pod on Friday, and it's like, yelling happens, like that's fine. It's you'd rather not be yelling because you're doing good, but I went back and watched the videos. Like, I think he's yelling at Garrett, and he basically admitted that. So we'll see. And we're going to talk about Garrett and Jones and all of that. And anything else that we need to touch up on before we send it away?
No.
All right. Take it away, Steve from Blue's Clues.
Mail time. Mail time. The mail's here. Come on. Bye, guys. Here's the mail. It never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail.
Thanks, Steve from Blue's Clues, who became a... Justin, let's get into the mail. Steve from Blue's Clues has kind of made a comeback since we did our last mailbag episode too, by the way.
Some are saying that it is because of Talking Giants that Steve was able to make that comeback.
Hey, he's a big part of our show. Oh, I have the new Steve from Blue's Clues stickers, by the way.
Oh, our friend Julian made those.
Yes. All right, Justin, let's get into the mail.
Get into the mail. Find those stickers as I ask a pair of 3 questions to kick off our mailbag session. So, Benjamin at BS Colo. I'm guarantee it's just B Scolo, and I put the S in there for no reason. Big Rutgers fan. Go are you? Whose performance thus far is more concerning, Leonard Williams or James Bradbury? Then, Ben Butler asked, at Ben Butler 7, has there been an increase of double teams on Leo which has resulted in him getting less pressure? Or does it show the impact of Tomlinson had on this D-line and that Dexter, Danny, Austin Johnson aren't the same caliber of player that Tomlinson was? And then final question that's paired with these 3, Mark Masura Jr. at Mark Masura. Is losing Dalvin Tomlinson the reason for the defensive regression? Was he crucial to Leonard Williams' season last year?
So I put all these together because I think it's one big Leonard Williams conversation. And honestly, the question is Bradbury or Leonard Williams, who you're more disappointed with? I think Leonard Williams is the player I'm most disappointed with on the entire New York Giants roster, is Leonard Williams. And even going back and watching the film, I'm not even disappointed in James Bradbury for week 2. Patrick Graham kind of put him in a position to be screwed. They were playing him very far off, and I do expect that to be changed. So going back and looking at the film, you see James Bradbury getting beat, but then it's like, man, he goes put in bad situations, and then he made that interception. So I don't even really feel bad about Bradbury. But Leonard Williams has 0 sacks, 1 tackle for a loss, 2 pressures. I mean, he has been a big fat 0 so far this season, and we are counting on him. And I don't think it's like, oh, his got his contract and he got lazy. Like, Leonard Williams has always been a productive player. Last year was a career year, but he's always been a really productive player. And it's just he has not made an impact, but with stats or even when you're just watching him.
Yeah. The crazy thing is that he should have 2 sacks on the season. He should have had a sack on Teddy Bridgewater last week, and he should have had a sack on Heineke this past weekend, when Heineke was like rolling out of the pocket. I think the Heineke one was more of a bad miss than the Bridgewater one, because the Bridgewater one, he was already out of the pocket. He already had momentum, so Bridgewater gave him a stiff arm. Heineke wasn't even moving that much. He got moving after Leonard Williams missed the sack. So, but even besides, like, let's just say Leonard Williams comes down with those 2 sacks, and those would be 2 impact plays. But still, this past week he had no QB hits. He had no pressures. At least last week, I think he had some 3 pressures and he had 2 QB hits. This past weekend's Washington, it was nothing. And Bobby, you're completely right. The next gen stats kind of back up. The cushion stats with Terry McLaurin was quite large, and even you looked at the touchdown at which Terry McLaurin scored last Thursday against Washington. It's like, well, we're on the 20-yard line. They're on the 15-yard line. Why are you playing James Bradbury back more than 10 yards past the sticks? It just made 0 sense. I'm almost at a point where if a talented skill position player, let's say this Sunday, like Calvin Ridley or Kyle Pitts, right? If a talented skill position player goes up on the sideline and makes a contested catch or a contested grab over one of our corners, I'm almost like okay with it. It's like, tip your hat, you got him. We'll get the pass deflection next time. But the fact that we're just getting killed by this death of 1,000 cuts approach because we're playing off ball, it's almost like a flashback to 2019 with James Betcher. The fact that that's how we're losing is not alarming, but it's frustrating. And that scheme, whereas Leonard Williams just not being productive, is Leonard Williams not being productive.
Yeah, and it's also, like Leonard Williams is the best pass rusher on this team right now.
Yeah,
and the pass rush has been the biggest issue for the defense, more so than this. Like, they have not been able to generate a pass rush at all.
Yeah.
And our standards for it were low, and they are not meeting it. Like, the pass rush has been really bad. Ojulari's made a play here and there. O'Shane Ximines has done zilch.
Yep.
Lorenzo Carter has really done nothing in the pass rush game. Dexter Lawrence hasn't done it. And then Leonard Williams, who is expected to not have sacks every game, but to be pressure the QB, get him out of the pocket, just has not done that. Where James Bradbury, it's not his fault the way they aligned in the past 2 games. And I expect Patrick Graham to make those changes. But what Patrick Graham can't do is try and scheme up pressure all game long and blitz. Like, at some point, you're not going to get there with 4, be one of the best in the league, but you have to get there on some reps, and they're just not getting there on any reps with 4. You had the Azeez Ojulari sack and like one other play, and that was when Leonard Williams missed the sack.
Yep.
Was that play where Ojulari forced Heineke up in the pocket. And they just have not been able to generate pressure, and they've not even, our low expectations for generating pressure they're not meeting.
Yeah, I will say it's a little bit more justified for the pass rush not being there week 2 versus week 1. Week 1, they deserve all the heat in the world because Teddy Bridgewater was holding onto the ball. His average time to throw was over 3 seconds. Taylor Heineke's average time to throw this past weekend was 2.44 seconds. That was the second fastest in the NFL this past weekend. So I very much can understand. I'm not going to fault the pass rush if a quarterback's consistently
part of that with the soft zone too.
Yeah, and getting rid of the ball in less than 2.5 seconds. The main problem, I don't know if it's going to come up in this mailbag, but the main problem for the Giants defense this past weekend was yards after the catch. They allowed a total of 144 yards after the catch. And their average yards after the catch total last year as a defense was some like 54 yards. And that was like middle of the pack, probably a little bit below average. Bobby, last year, the Texans allowed the most yards after the catch per reception. The most yards after the catch per game on a per game basis. And they allowed, I believe it was 142 yards per game on average, yards after the catch. So the Giants against Washington, if you go by the 2020 standards in total, they were bad. Like that is the worst that you can get in the National Football League in terms of allowing yards after the catch. So again, the approach of the death by the 1,000 cuts kind of got to the Giants again. And do you have anything to say about that before we maybe even move to this Dalvin? I want to talk about this whole Dalvin thing too, because so many people are talking about Dalvin Tomlinson.
Yeah, last thing I'll say on it is the soft zone is something that they're going to play a good amount of zone, but James Bradbury shouldn't be playing 10 yards off.
Correct.
And it doesn't mean you have to, play press man coverage. It doesn't mean that. Even though they had success running man coverage this past week, where versus Denver they really didn't have a lot of success doing it. But Bradbury should be playing up. You shouldn't be playing him that far off, especially when there was no hard flat defender. So that's what I'll say. That's my biggest critique of Patrick Graham is that they're not playing James Bradbury like he's a top cornerback, and he is.
Yeah, I agree. And even Adoree Jackson too. Where I actually thought previously on the stats report video last week, I actually thought that Graham was running more man because his blitz rate was so high, when that's actually not the case. And Dan Duggan was able to get his hands on the coverage stats, which coverage rates, that's not something that's public. That's something that I'm basically relying on Seth Walder, who the big heads, the media heads, they all have access to. I think next-gen data that the general public doesn't have access to, and coverage rates is one of those things that the general public doesn't have access to. And Dan Duggan basically said, and I talk about it more on the stats report, but Dan Duggan basically said the Giants' defense, in terms of their cover 3 rates and their cover 2 rates, they're running it the same as they were last year, where it's not like they're running more man and guys are getting beat by man. No, they're running cover 3 and cover 2 the same amount as they were last year. And I would say them running cover 2, at least looking at the explosive plays the Giants have allowed, them running cover 2 has hurt them more than running cover 3.
Yep. The Dalvin part. I disagree. I think I agree. I think we see the defense not playing good, and it's like, okay, what's changed? And it's Dalvin. Now, I will say there is times where you watch and you miss Dalvin. Danny Shelton is, he's not eating double teams the way that Danny Shelton can, and we always knew that he wasn't going to be able to pull off the athletic plays that Dalvin was, where, both those guys can start the pop on the O-line and eat up those double teams, but Dalvin can finish those plays. We were never expecting Shelton to do that. But Shelton's like, he's not eating up those double teams. So there's times where you miss Dalvin, but I don't think it has any correlation to Leonard Williams. In fact, maybe I would even say B.J. Hill not being here might have more correlation to Leonard Williams than Dalvin, because, B.J. Hill was that pass rushing defensive tackle. Yeah,
where now the Giants are forced to run more 2 edge rush or 2 defensive lineman sets versus being confident in running those 3 defensive lineman sets. They would run, Bobby, last year, they would run 3 defensive lineman sets a ton on third down because their interior defensive line room, it was stacked. And it's just not that stacked anymore in terms of the ability of the pass rushers in the interior defensive line room, because Danny Shelton and Austin Johnston are both these nose tackles where you don't feel confident in them rushing the passer. Danny Shelton does not look good. I'm sorry. I'm not a film buff, but You know, every time I watch him and every time my eyes on him, he's getting moved off the ball. I was never expecting him to be this athlete where he's making plays and he's making tackles for losses. But he even with how big he's getting moved off the ball. And Austin Johnson has looked a world better than he has. I'm not happy with Danny Shelton.
Yeah, me either. I mean, he can turn it around, but he hasn't done what we expected him to do.
Right. But the errors on this defense, final point, the errors on this defense, it's because they're allowing yards after the catch, and the secondary that used to make plays on the football when the ball was in the air, and by the time it got to the skill position players and they would force an incompletion, those problems are not they're not as a result of losing Dalvin Tomlinson. They're not getting killed in the run game, you know, and Taylor Heineke got rid of the ball in 2.44 seconds week 2. And Dalvin Tomlinson was never racking up pressures, racking up QB hits, racking up sacks.
We looked up the numbers. Almost all of Leonard Williams' sacks came with like Dalvin Tomlinson off the field.
Correct.
I think like 2 or 3 came with Dalvin on the field.
All
right, week 2 of football is in the books, and now it's time to review the tape. And get ready. We've been reviewing the tape. Get ready for week 3 with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. To kick off another action-packed week, DraftKings is giving new customers $150 instantly when they bet $1 in any football game. Listen up, because you don't want to miss this. Head to DraftKings Sportsbook app now and place a bet of $1 on any week 1 game to receive $150 in free bets instantly. And sportsbooks that are not available in your state, DraftKings still has huge cash prizes up for grabs all season long with their daily fantasy contests. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code JOHNBOY to receive $150 in free bets when you place a $1 bet on any football game. That's promo code JOHNBOY this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit and $1 wager required. 1 per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sports for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or in Indiana 1-800-9 with it. All right, next question.
Yeah, all right. So for all those people that were getting mad at us that we don't talk about the defense enough because this is an offensive league, you can suck it because we just spent 15 minutes on it.
Suck it.
All right, Louis A. Angioleo. I think I just said that wrong. I don't have my glasses on. Angioleo. I think I said it
Angelo.
Right. And there you go. That we just could say that. At NY_Lewis12. Is it possible to move one of Peart or Solder to guard and have them both on the field? Or do you believe Bredesen could be the best option there until Lemieux returns? And if one of them has success at guard, do you think Lemieux can ultimately lose his spot? And then also Westlock at Wesley Westicles, one of my favorite Twitter users. How would you rank our current offensive line members 1 through 8 on confidence, performance, potential? Is Andrew Thomas the lone bright spot?
Okay, so the basis of this question is Matt Peart playing guard, and he practiced there today or yesterday when you're listening to this. Now, I wouldn't get too crazy into that because right now their only backup offensive linemen are Matt Peart and Matt Skura. You know, so they had David Moa working at guard at some reps in practice, you know. So I wouldn't freak out about that. Yeah, you didn't see that? Duggan tweeted it.
David Moe's a defensive lineman, for those who don't know.
Yeah, Solder, absolutely not. And then Shane Lemieux in this question. I think Shane Lemieux's done for the year.
No.
Everything's pointing to it without like them trying. It seems like he's done for the year. Which sucks because he looked improved in the 20 snaps that he got to start the season. So Peart moving to guard. I think he should start at right tackle. But I don't think it's that crazy. And he did it a little bit at UConn. You know, Clapback Sports, pointed out. Like, he played a little bit of guard when he first went to UConn. He doesn't struggle with bull rushes, you know, and his biggest issue is opening up his hips. He doesn't really have to deal with that at the guard spot as a pass rusher. And once he's locked on guys, he's beautiful. It's just that initial punch opening the hips. But once Matt Peart is in front of you and has his hands on you, it's good. And you're like, well, he doesn't punch great. Well, guess what? You don't have to have the greatest punch at guard, and his arms are so long that it would make up for it compared to other guys. You say, well, stronger defensive tackles could get into him and bull rush him, maybe. But I wouldn't really the only thing you could say against it would be the frame, which is that's just a big frame than guard. But I also remember people telling us, no, Nick Gates cannot play center because of, you know, he's 6'5.5" or 6'6". So I would think he should start at right tackle, you know, but I kind of would be intrigued of it as a pass blocker. And honestly, as a run blocker, like Matt Parrott's an improvement over Nate Solder. And he might be a better run blocker than Ben Bredesen, too. He won't be better than a guy like Shane Lemieux or Will Hernandez. But, like, I don't know. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. Like, I'm kind of intrigued by it.
Yeah. Especially because he's an athlete. And if there's...
He can pull well. He pulled at UConn a ton.
Yeah, if there's certain issues that he can't fix a guard and putting him at... that he can't fix a tackle and putting him at guard would... mask it, and we may never look at Matt Parrott as, oh, he's going to turn into an elite, awesome guard, but if he could be serviceable, and if that's the way that you can save the draft pick, because at this point, Bobby, after seeing 2 weeks of Nate Solder, and the fact that Matt Parrott didn't even rotate in there, that's damning. It's pretty damning, and a lot of people said the Giants should have done that with Eric Flowers way before another team did. The Miami Dolphins and the Washington football team, they put Eric Flowers at guard, and he's still rolling around the NFL somewhere and he's playing. So if they got to do it, especially because they need to out of necessity, then go ahead and do it.
Yeah, I mean, I would try it. I think he would be I'm pretty confident he'd be a good pass blocking guard. And you're like, well, the height. Like, I don't know. I think there's bigger issues than that. Like, I know everyone's going to come out like, oh, this is just not a guard frame. It's not a guard. Okay. But you know what? This isn't a cookie cutter league. Not everything fits perfectly in the way. Like, I mean, Ben Cleveland's a 6'6" guard and 350 pounds. Like, we like him. So wouldn't be perfect, but I would explore that opportunity and see how it looks. Yeah.
I also think so much of our offense is going to be out of the shotgun for the remainder of the year, because I think this Giants offense is finally realizing things that work, where most of their snaps and most of the plays came out of the shotgun against Washington this past weekend. So Saquon Barkley runs better out of the shotgun. Daniel Jones throws better out of the shotgun. So that's further separation that you have at the snap of the ball from guard to quarterback, if that's something that you really care about. So,
but the last point is that I think that he's practicing at guard this week because they're going to sign somebody by the time the games start Sunday. They will sign some type of offensive lineman, whether it's calling up Corey Cunningham or Barton, or bringing back Slade or Wiggins or someone from another practice squad. There will be someone signed by then.
I also don't want them to waste time. If they think that this is a realistic option, then do it, right?
He hasn't practiced at guard in the NFL until yesterday.
At least start practicing him there further. Like, don't just sign somebody off the street to take like those second string reps and then continue to just have Matt Parrott sit on the bench. You know what I mean?
Matt Parrott should start at right tackle. Nate Solder does. Yeah. I'm going to talk about Nate Solder a little bit when we get to our run game question. Wes's question, the 1 through 8. I'm going to go quick through mine.
Sure.
And I'm including Lemieux. Let's just pretend Lemieux's healthy, since he's one of the 8 right now. I would go Thomas, Lemieux, Hernandez, Bredesen, Parrott, Price, Skura, Solder.
That sounds right.
Thomas is really the one bright spot. Lemieux, he looked good, and I think he can improve. Hernandez is that baseline. Bredesen, there's some hope there, but he's not better than Hernandez right now. Parrott is just potential. Price, I'm kind of out on. Skura could be a serviceable player, and Solder's he's done.
Fair. Yeah.
All right, next question.
All right, next question is coming from Rahul at R Bajaj 0413.
He's in our chat right now.
Look at that. Can you talk more about the run game in general? Like, I watched the O-line breakdown, and as much as Saquon's injury is to blame, it seemed like Gallman just had better hole/schemes to get those 3 to 6 yard gains, while Barkley gets hit before the line of scrimmage 75% of the time, it feels like. And then Tim Coffey asks, can you please explain the zone run scheme and talk about why this O-line isn't good at it?
All right, so save any Saquon takes you have for our Galladay versus Saquon question later, okay?
Sure.
So I think this is a good question by Tim Coffey, because it's like we talk about, like, they tried to run a zone scheme last year. It didn't work. They switched to a power gap scheme. I think a lot of people just, like, don't kind of like know that. So what zone is essentially you're blocking them, like the plays to the right, you're blocking the gap to your right. And what it does is it creates a lot of single blocks, like you like one-on-one blocks. And the double teams aren't meant to move a guy; they're meant to move to the next player in the in the second level. So they're tougher blocks to sustain. But when it's done right, it's beautiful. And it gives running backs more options, where the gap scheme, it's very much like this is the hole you're running through. And the Giants have been trying to do some zone stuff, but it just has not been working. Part of that is Saquon's not willingness to not just go. But anyways, so they're just tougher blocks to sustain. And one reason the Giants can't do it right now is because of Nate Solder, because he's either the front side, where on the front side he just can't sustain those blocks. He doesn't know how to set it. He can't get his hips around on the outside zone, and he doesn't set a good edge. He doesn't get any push when it's inside zone. And on the backside, whether it's him or tight ends, they are being moved down and they're closing gaps up because he's getting pushed down like crazy. And so what the Giants have done, they did it a lot towards the end of last year. They're still trying to do some zone stuff because they feel like that fits Saquon better. The gap stuff is pulling, a lot more pulling, down blocks. Like it's about winning with angles, like true double teams. Like moving to the next level, and the Giants run like a play called duo, where it's like you're trying to get as many double teams as possible. But it's also very much like this is the gap that you are going through on this play. Or on duo, it's like you're going up, and if the linebacker is left unblocked, you isn't aggressive, you hit the hole. If not, you bounce outside. So it's basically those are the differences. But the Giants don't have the offensive lineman right now to run zone. If Andrew Thomas and Shane Lemieux have the ability, Hernandez could a little bit. But like Price, Solder, they just don't have the guys to do it.
The only play that's really working in the running game is using Caden Smith as like a lead blocker.
Yeah, power.
It's the only play that's working.
Yeah, it's where they pull and they trap one of the defensive end and then have Caden Smith as a lead blocker. It's, as that fullback role.
Yeah,
because they're not really using Penny as a fullback at all in this year. They're so far. Where last year he got real fullback reps besides the fullback handoff at 3rd and 1.
Yeah, and it's tough. I mean, and so now we're talking about, they went out of the shotgun so much week 2, which I'm happy with. Then you're talking about, well, the impact of the fullback goes down slightly, unless you're talking about 3rd and short situations, which they gave some fullback dives to Elijah Penny, which worked on some 3rd and short situations. And 3rd and short is Giants have typically kind of struggled with that in years past. So. Saquon actually had an efficient game, which I guess I'll save that.
Yeah, save it. Lemieux missing is a bigger deal, and also Gallman, to his credit and to his not to against him, was very much like, I'm going to find the smallest space, the first hole, and I'm going to hit it, and I'm not going to try and break big plays at all. I'm just going to get my 4 or 5 yards and push the pile.
Yeah.
Some people like that, but also it's like he wasn't a good receiver. He fumbled the ball at times. Wasn't a great he didn't do the other things good enough to be that type of running back for what the Giants wanted as a backup to Saquon. He needed volume, right. And as Saquon Barkley's backup, you're never going to get volume.
Right. All right. Next question, coming from Glock Roach. Jones seemed to play great last game, but what are some things he can further improve on? One thing I noticed was his ball placement on some routes was behind. Example, one of the Galladay passes. The pass to Shep on that very last drive as well. There
was a couple of passes that were a little behind Shep. So that would be one. Like, you can always be more accurate. Here's something, and I remember Orlovsky talking about this. Remember, it was that 3rd and 1 play versus the Cardinals, and it was when they punted afterwards, and I was very pissed that they punted because they were down by a couple scores. And they ran stick to the left side, and Caden Smith was open. Remember that? But Jones threw it to Shepard deep. And yep. I like that because I was like, you know what? Stop trying to dink and dunk on the field. Like, go for it or go. Orlovsky said something, and something I kind of agree with is Jones tries to put perfect placement on every ball. Like and it's good for him. Like he was the top most efficient deep passer last year because of that. But with a guy like Kenny Galladay, you don't need to get it perfect where he's extending out. Take a little bit off of it with Kenny Galladay. Let him adjust. Let him make that play. You don't have to make the play for Kenny Galladay. Like the play the play on the right sideline, the Galladay, it was extremely accurate, but there was no adjustment for Galladay, and then the little bit of pass interference or tug that they didn't call. It's like, well, even if that play's a little bit behind him, Galladay can adjust his body, turn towards it, and make one of those catches. So that would be something. The Slayton one, like it was Slayton should have caught it, but he could have put that a little less on there. So those would be my things. Do you have anything? Because I actually just want to talk about Daniel Jones in general with this.
That was one of his best career games. And I understand, Bobby, you're a big box score guy. Yeah, he didn't throw for 350 yards. He didn't throw for 5 touchdowns. But when you look at his value in terms of what else was working around him, nobody besides Sterling Shepard was working around Daniel Jones on Thursday.
It's hiding blemishes on this offense is their chemistry.
Yeah, and the fact that Saquon Barkley is not being used in the receiving game. Saquon Barkley had 12 carries for 16 yards besides the 144-yard play, and we didn't even score on that drive. Nothing is happening around Daniel Jones that's helping him. There's no yards after the catch, and I guess this can transition to your Jones point. 1.9 yards after the catch per completion on Thursday night. And Daniel Jones threw for 249 yards, and how many attempts did he have? So, it was him. It was him and his ball placement that made everything work. And he had a CPOE of like +7, which was one of the best of his career.
Yeah, he had a great game. I just think, like, you look at the Tampa game, that game was better. And you can talk about box score, but it's like those games were better. Like it was better than the Lions game where he threw 4 touchdowns, and even, better than the Jets game where he also threw 4 touchdowns. But, like, I didn't think it was the Tampa game. There was, like, that touchdown to Shepard in the corner in his own was impeccable placement. The throw to Slate, like, there was, like, he played really awesome in that game.
Yeah.
Jones, he looks like he's a better player, and this is kind of where, you are kind of happy with the offense a little bit. This is the issue. You mentioned the yak. That's, like, those separation numbers and stuff, like, those separation numbers are so flawed. It's not a value of how good a receiver is. Him and Sterling Shepard's connection is hiding blemishes. Why? Because there's these routes that don't breed yak. But Shepard, like, Jones is anticipating really well. Shepard is breaking them off, making, like, tough catches. And it is, like, them connecting on 84% of their passes is hiding, like, the issues with this offense. Like, Garrett ran less stick, but they ran curl. We're even going to talk about Kadarius Toney. The touchdown to Darius Slayton was all curls, and Daniel Jones audibled out to it into a deep pass. So Daniel Jones taking a little more control of this offense. The defensive pass interference on Kenny Golladay? That was stick. And then they had the go on the backside tag. I guarantee you, Garrett, when that ball was snapped and Jones didn't throw it to the stick, he was like, what the hell's going on? And then Jones throws it to Golladay, and they called the DPI. Like, Jones is kind of taking the offense into his control a little more, where he's like, like this, there's stuff that's not working, and you saw some of the issues when they ran the all curls and stuff like that. Is not an efficient offense. Now, Jones played well and he completed a lot of those passes, but you can't expect him to be perfectly timed every single week. But he is getting better. He's manipulating the pocket better. I think now that Andrew Thomas has been good, he's a lot better at manipulating the pocket when his front side is bad compared to his play. Like, if you put Andrew Thomas at right tackle and Nate Solder at left tackle, I think Daniel Jones looks a lot worse right now. He seemed to be, taking control of the offense a little more. So he looks good. I think he's a better player, which means this offense will be better than last year and will score more points. But at the same, there's still the same offensive issues in this game. Like, awesome that they added more read option and stuff like that. Like, good on that. There was more stuff that was good. But at the same time, it's like there's a lot of the ugly the ugliness of this offense is still there. They didn't totally change the offense last week.
I mean, you're talking about why this offense is at average and not above average, where even though through the first 2 weeks of the season they've been an above average offense in terms of how they've moved the ball. They're not putting up over 30 points. They're not going crazy in terms of producing, 400 plus yards, even though I think they had close to 400 yards on Thursday. So they're not going crazy, but you just outlined why this offense is going to be average at best, and why, at least in theory, why the offense being average and the offense being like they were on Thursday, why that should lead to a winning Giants team. But it's this defense that is the gray cloud over everybody right now, and that's not a.
My issue is I'm not happy with average though. Like, I want Daniel Jones to be great, and he can't be great in this offense.
No, he can't. But really, why can't we continue to expect Daniel Jones to not be perfect? Because you already did outline.
He's gonna throw interceptions this year,
But also, why not expect Daniel Jones to be what Tony Romo was for that Cowboy offense. And I'm not saying Daniel Jones is going to be Tony Romo, because Tony Romo was magnificent. But why not expect that same type of performance where Jones is taking over the offense? Because we saw it pre-injury, and I said this over the offseason, that week 6 to 12 stretch where the Giants offense was working their way up to average, and then boom, he gets hurt during that Cincinnati game right off the bye, and it kind of ruined any momentum that the offense had. But why not expect Daniel Jones to get better, to manipulate the pocket better with better protection on his blind side, and be a dude? Like
I do expect that.
But you're almost painting it and you're making it sound like it's a bad thing. But it's like, no, that's a good thing. Like, we should expect the quarterback to do that.
Because there's a fixable issue to make it better than that.
Right, but we can't do that.
And there's season fixable issue.
Why I'm so okay with it and why I'm so invested in, all right, Jones, just do it, bud. You got to put the team on your back. Because the time to do that was January to fire Jason Garrett and not now. You know?
I know. It's just it's frustrating.
I know it is. All right, let me read this ad, and then we'll kind of go through some of these other questions. So, autumn is in the air, the pumpkins are in the patch, and our friends at Manscaped, they are here to make sure you don't carve your pumpkins when you're grooming, if you know what I'm saying. Ball joke. Make sure you're keeping things fresh this fall with the leaders in male grooming and their brand new 4th generation performance package. Boys and ladies, if you're listening, if you want to get your guys a Halloween gift. Going to see that movie. Can't wait. Halloween Kills. Get ready for a cuffing season like no other. Ready to take the leap into fall with Manscaped? ? Join the 2 million men worldwide using Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with the code GIANTS. The brand new Performance Package 4.0 includes the Lawnmower 4.0. If you're looking to cozy up this fall, this trimmer is essential. Their 4th generation trimmer. They feature a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. Nobody likes nicks, cuts, or anything. It also gives you the ability to turn 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. Plus, it's waterproof, Bobby Skinner. Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts to their Performance Package 4.0. Manscaped Boxers and the Shed Travel Bag. They'll get you comfy on the way home and on the go this season. So, get 20% off plus free shipping with the code GIANTS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code GIANTS at manscaped.com. Make your balls a priority this fall. Choose Manscaped. Your balls will thank you. That is 20% off plus free shipping with the code GIANTS at manscaped.com. Thank you to Manscaped.
All right, next question.
Chris at Chris Kennedy _25. In these first 2 games, what player outside of Andrew Thomas and Sterling Shepard has impressed you guys the most? We'll answer that part first, and then I'll say the second part.
Besides Daniel Jones, now I know he got beat on a big play on Thursday, but that is, that's some of the downfalls of man coverage when you don't get pressure. Tate Crowder looks like the clear inside linebacker next, number 2 next to Blake Martinez. He's playing fast. He looks stronger. And there's being more asked of him. The Giants are playing a lot less +1 boxes this year because they're doing the 2 high safety stuff more so. They're rolling down out of it and maybe playing some cover 3, but their fronts are a lot less, and that asks more out of your linebackers. And it's why Blake Martinez hasn't looked as dominant as he did last year, because there's being a lot more asked out of those guys. So Tate Crowder would be one, and then on offense, Caden Smith. They used him in the passing game more than flat routes, and you saw he caught a pass on 4 verts and 21 yards. And as a blocker, you see all the big plays, and they're usually sprung by Caden Smith. So I think Caden Smith has looked really good. Yeah,
Caden Smith is a phenomenal blocker. He should be used in the receiving game more. And then when Evan Ingram comes back, we'll involve him more, since the first 2 games our tight ends haven't been thrown to, or is that just Garrett's scheme? I do think that the way Caden Smith caught that ball on a crossing route last week, and even Kyle Rudolph catching a ball in the intermediate part, well, not really, it was past the sticks. Kyle Rudolph catching a ball in the middle of the field past the sticks, lining those guys up as wide receivers. I think we should do the same thing with Evan Ingram. None of this stick stuff, hands in the ground for Evan Ingram. Every play, he should just be lined up out wide. Every play.
Give him crossers. We don't run freaking crossers. It pisses me off so bad. Give Evan Ingram crossing routes.
Did it with Caden Smith, and it was a big play. So, there you go.
So, yeah. All right, next question.
Next 2 questions. Sign Bortles. Okay. What's more likely against Atlanta? A Saquon Barkley breakout game or a Kenny Galladay breakout game? And then Danny Pendergast asked, who will have a bigger day against the Falcons, Saquon or Kenny Galladay?
My answer is easily Kenny Golladay. I mean, he
I
had
would
6
agree.
catches, 114 yards versus Atlanta last year. Can I say something? I'm not disappointed with Golladay really so far. You know, like week 1, the usage was bad, but this past week I wasn't too mad about it.
I
It could have
agree.
been more. There was one time, you know, I outlined in the film review where Daniel Jones should have thrown the ball to him, not in that final drive of the game, second to last drive of the game, where people were like, "Well, look, he's open on the backside." It's like, yeah, but that's not part of his read. You know, and that's the issue with all curls is that you're not reading going through progressions. You're reading the defense pre-snap, picking a side, and going. Anyways, he had 8 targets in the last game, and if 9 if you included defensive pass interference. 1 was on that right sideline where he didn't catch it, and he had another drop on the RPO in the red zone. You know, so I'm not worried about that. I think
No.
Kenny Golladay is going to have those big week 2 I was all right with Kenny Galladay's usage. There could be more, but I was fine with it. I don't look at week 1 definitely. It was like they had 1 target through 3 quarters. That was unbelievably ridiculous. But this past week I was fine with the way that he was used. And it helped, and it's helping out Darius Slayton, something we talked about. Now Slayton's had some drop issues, but just as far as like getting open and making big plays, Slayton's been that guy. He should have, you know, he had the 42-yarder versus Denver. You know, he had the touchdown this past week. He should have had another touchdown. Like Slayton has been a benefactor of it, and Shepard has looked at even Shepard looked really good last year. He looks better this year.
Yes, and there was a 19-yard, almost an explosive play that went to Sterling Shepard this past week where Washington ran a lot of cover 1.
Safety high.
Yup, Washington ran a lot of cover 1, and there was a play where cover 1, that safety, even though he was shadowing towards Shepard's side of the field to start, post-snap, that safety goes, and he rolls up to Kenny Golladay, and it leaves the middle of the field wide open for Sterling Shepard. So, yeah,
We're going to talk about that play when we talk about Tony, too.
The presence of Kenny Golladay, you know, it's here at times, even when he's not making a catch, and I think there's been some super overreactions on Twitter as to, he wasn't worth it, should have brought back Dalvin. Saw one of those today that made me upset. And really, what it comes down to, Bobby, is I think Daniel Jones, and you mentioned this earlier about Daniel Jones, you know, wanting to put the perfect ball and wanting to put the ball in like the best of spots. Because Kenny Golladay is not a wide receiver that's built on separation, and also Jason Garrett's system is not built on wide receivers getting separation, so you know it's a beautiful disaster right there. Even when Kenny Golladay is not open, Daniel Jones needs to learn that he is open, and that is where the chemistry between wide receiver and quarterback comes in, and why I think it's okay that it's taking time for that relationship to form. If Kenny Golladay,
a 4-year deal too, you know, like
yeah, and if Kenny Golladay had these 2 games with a full summer with Daniel Jones, I'd be a little bit more concerned. But the fact that he didn't have a full summer, they haven't had a lot of reps together, and he's working his way in where there are like that play action RPO little post route towards the middle of the field. That's been the majority of the plays that he's gotten involved, and I'm okay with that. You know, that is a chain mover within itself, and if you can have three or four of those in a game, that's 3 or 4 first downs, and then as we'll go along, we'll get you more involved in the vertical passing game, which that's the hope where you can be that contested catch king that we signed you to do. So that, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, so that's our Kenny Golladay talk. Saquon Barkley, I know you're going to say he was efficient. I thought he is dancing, and I know this has always been a critique of Saquon. He is just dancing behind the line of scrimmage. He is unbelievable. He is so much more indecisive than he was in previous years. He does not look good to me.
I'd agree with you. My eyes agreed with you, certainly. The next gen data actually had him at 2.66 seconds average time behind the line of scrimmage, which Peyton Barber was the best this past weekend at 2.42. So Saquon Barkley was closer to being more efficient behind the line of scrimmage than not efficient. The efficiency metric actually didn't have him that bad, and his rushing yards over expected per attempt was above average this past week. So his yards before contact is also like less than 1.5 yards. So, while I will, that's the stats, right? My eyes are still saying that he's not efficient, and the fact that he went 12 carries for 16 yards, not counting the 1 carry for 44 yards, that's unacceptable. Can't have that.
Yeah, the offensive line has not been great in the run blocking, but it hasn't been that bad. He has not looked good to me. It's kind of worrisome. But again, I don't want to panic over the first. He had 2 games in 4 days, so or 5 days. So, we all it takes is one good game, and it's like, okay, Saquon's back. He did look more athletic. Like he looked like he trusted himself more this past week than he did than week 1, though. So I think that so maybe week 3, it's when it comes together. So
also, can we throw him the ball, please?
He has 3 catches for like 14 yards. I will give Garrett credit. Remember the throw that Jones almost threw an interception versus Denver? That was a really well placed, really well drawn up play to get Saquon the ball. And just the safety kind of just read Jones' eyes, and he almost threw an interception. But besides that, they have not involved him in the receiving game besides like a screen or a check down at all. At all.
And it's also on Jones. It is also on Jones.
It's also not on Jones because they're not using him as like. I'm not talking about getting to him to the check downs quicker. It's like they line him out wide and like put him on a slant. Like why don't we do that? Like, I don't why does Saquon Barkley never get to run a slant? Why is it always, a little backfield out?
Yeah, and also, why is it always that Saquon Barkley and our running backs start as receivers, but then we motion them in as running backs? Why can't we do the opposite? Because then, that's such a tell as to what coverage a defense could be playing. And when you take your running back from the backfield and motion him out as a wide receiver, does a linebacker follow him? Does a safety come? That could be such a tell for Daniel Jones pre-snap. But why would we make things easier on Daniel Jones? All right, next question. Next 2 questions. These are paired together. Ron Swanson at Ronnie Swanson 69. Why are the media some clowns? Great question. And then Brian Porras at B Porras 1. Isn't it time to put Tony in the slot for some plays and have him as the primary read to use his speed?
Some plays, but I wouldn't want him Shepard's doing a good job. Do you want to talk about on field or off field with Tony first?
Off field. Because that paints a better picture as to maybe what's going on the field, which is nothing.
I don't know. I'm worried. I'm worried about him. He needs a friend on this team, is what I feel like. I feel like he needs a friend on this team.
Yeah. How can you not think at this point that something may or may not be happening? How can you not think that?
He's literally the story that Rosenblatt wrote was accurate, that he is frustrated with the Giants, and I get that, but it's it's being voiced through whoever to the media. I don't know. It's just it hasn't been a very bad start, and now it's trickling into the season. So I guess until there's something substantive, happens, it's that's all we can go with. The some clowns thing was kind of funny, and I do think it's funny the media being like, "That's not a very good idea." It's like, well, so you're saying that you're going to write bad stuff about him because he doesn't, kiss your ass?
It's very mob mentality like, and it's kind of childish.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The media was acting childish, but they can be childish where we want Tony to not be as childish. But at the same time, the way they're using him on the field, I would be frustrated too if I was him. They played him for 19 reps, which I'm not going to be mad with the use, the total amount of reps he plays. Which 19, if you told me he plays 19 reps, I'm like, 2 thumbs up, cool. 9 of them are run plays.
Oh,
so no usage. 5 of them were curl routes, which for a guy who's not a timing receiver, and a route that you need a ton of timing for, it's kind of useless. The curls are still there. And then he had 2 clear out goes, which is, he's not an option unless he's just uncovered. He's just clearing out, which, that's fine. And there was a dig, I like that. Jones didn't get to him, but I like that. And then they used him on 1 drag route, and they had Shepard on a crosser, and it led to that Shepard 19-yard catch. And if the linebacker sagged with Shepard, Tony could have had a catch on that play even and gotten yak. That's the way to use him. Don't use him the way you use Sterling. The way if you ask him to do what Sterling Shepard does right now, it would be a disaster because Jones and Shepard are on another level right now. They know when exactly a guy's breaking. Jones is anticipating throws. They are making some tough ass throws and catches to each other. With Tony, put him on a drag, put him on a crosser, put him through progressions. But it's like if you're gonna use him for 19 reps, use him. They just didn't use him. The one time they used him, like in a way that you would want to use him. It was a 19-yard catch for Sterling Shepard. Like Kadarius Toney's route led to a 19-yard catch for Sterling Shepard.
I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on because
they did the exact opposite of last week. Week 1, it's like when he's on the field, he is getting the ball. And then the opposite week's like, all right, he's on the field, but he has no involvement of what the offense is, how it's progressing.
Yeah. Same thing with Galladay. You hope it just changes. You hope that it's a summer of not being used, a summer of not playing, still learning the playbook, still getting things down, and that's the only hope. Where it's so crazy how Galladay, it's still like a Galladay. I actually have hope in that it can work. I mean,
Galladay's averaging almost 60 yards per game. Like
right.
If that's down, then I feel good about it. If that's his down part,
right? But it's the same thing with Saquon too, where it's like, oh well, we have to kind of. I'd say 2 more weeks we kind of have to wait to have like a necessary conversation. And it's the same thing with Tony. It's like we gotta still wait to see how kind of things develop, because same thing with Saquon. If Tony has a big play touchdown, then it's like, oh, well, we're all right. We're cool.
And he can. Like, that's the thing. It's like he can.
But they're not letting him. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like, use him. And don't, like, it doesn't have to be all or nothing, So it's like he wasn't even like an effective distraction. Like, I guess if you're just talking about them accounting for him being on the field, he's a distraction. But like, what he was doing wasn't being used that way. So actually use him, get him involved, and not just like manufacture touches. Have him in, second in a progression on a play, not fifth. And make him use it. He was drafted 20th overall for a reason. I refuse to believe that this Giants team that had expectations to win now, that desperately needed edge, drafted Kadarius Toney to store him for a year. I just don't believe that. Now maybe that's what you think should happen, but the Giants did not draft him 20th overall to not play him this year.
No. You don't do that for any first round pick. Really?
Yeah. So.
You shouldn't. Bobby, why don't you I'm pulling to you this episode. Why don't you read
actually,
the last
hold on a second. A simple game of matching answers to trivia questions. What am I talking about, guys? I'm talking about the Match 5 trivia game. I got 5 on it. The 5 gum, like you got 5. Comes with 320 game cards with many different topics, so it's fun for anyone and everyone. You don't even have to be smart. You could be a dummy and play this game, honestly. So it's like 5% of our audience is probably dumb, right, Justin?
I'm one of those 5%.
Yeah, so like I think 5% of our audience is dumb, and sometimes it's like, you know what, this ad read is probably not for you. This one is for you. Some of the cards have sports-oriented questions like name the best 5 pitchers of all time or name the 5 best wide receivers of all time. This game creates fun discussions and friendly disagreements. Or unfriendly disagreements if you're like that type of family. It only takes 3 to play and there is no limit. Save 50% off your order now when you use the coupon code JOHNBOY. Get your copy of Match 5 Trivia game by going to match5trivia.com, and it's match, the number 5, then trivia.com, and save 15% by entering code JOHNBOY. All right, let's finish this mailbag up.
Yeah, let's finish it up. All right, so second to last question. Coming from Brian Walsh at bwalsh06. How much longer until we see Quincy Roche in the pass rush rotation? I mean, here was the inactives from last week. It was Evan Ingram, Colin Johnson, Josh Jackson, Sam Beal. Why are we only running with like 3 outside corners? Justin Hilliard, Cam Brown, Quincy Roche. Why is Cullen Gillespie activated when Nate Ebner's on the team?
They both play a ton of special teams. Like, they're using both of them,
When Cam Brown comes back, if Cam Brown comes back, which can't believe we're talking special teams again. If Cam Brown comes back, Colin Gillespie should be inactive, and then they should activate Quincy Roche.
I think Roche, Johnson, and Hilliard are part of just like they were brand new to the team, But here's what I'll say is now, because you remember we did that segment in the offseason, like making the case for every outside linebacker to start?
Yes.
It seems like they've all made the case for them not to play. Like Ifeadi Odenigbo's gone. O'Shane Ximines has been a 0. Azeez Ojulari has been the best out of all of them, but it's like, he hasn't like been like a consistent player. Lorenzo Carter has really added nothing as a pass rusher. He's had some good plays in the run. And then, Carter Coughlin got moved to inside linebacker. Maybe even Carter Coughlin should be in the rotation. So yeah, I would give Roche.
Yeah.
I would give Roche the opportunity to take O'Shane Ximines' snaps.
I agree. And possibly, if Carter Coughlin's only going to play like 4 or 5 snaps as an interior linebacker, then he should be playing more snaps as an edge rusher.
Yeah, he's just
that goes
small.
without saying.
Oh,
well...
But if Carter Coughlin never switched to inside linebacker, would you be calling for him to play?
If we had zero edge production, then maybe. Like we have zero edge production right now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. All right, next question.
Mark Reynolds, final one. I believe this is the final one. Yes. Mark Reynolds at R_Enolds. If Gettleman makes one trade for another piece before the deadline, what position would you hope it would be?
This is a pretty easy question, right? Guard? Another guard? Another
Guard or
interior
edge?
offensive lineman?
Guard or
Yeah,
edge?
Edge. If we were like... Yeah, that's actually edge. Because you could see a good edge rush. I mean, like a Marcus Golden type, honestly.
We should trade for Marcus Golden. I mean, he's buried. He's kind of the third guy on that depth chart between Chandler Jones and Hassan Reddick, I think, is still there, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, Marcus Golden's third on that depth chart. He deserves some more snaps. Maybe he should be a Giant, Bobby Skinner. Marcus Golden would hate... I have a feeling. I didn't hear anything. But I have a feeling that Marcus Golden would hate if that happened.
Well, yeah, of course. It was the team that didn't play him and he got... Yeah, that wouldn't happen.
The team that didn't pay him, didn't play him, and then traded him.
Yeah, that just would never happen. Edge. If there was an edge out there, yeah, that would be it. It's like if we're trying to actually make the playoffs. If we're trying to just survive, guard.
Fair.
All right, that's the show. We'll be back on Friday for our preview of the Falcons game. Go Falcons.
Ooh.
My high school mascot was the Falcons. How about that?
I have a question. We have some time. We're not running very long. You said that if the New York Football Giants lost their football game on Thursday night, that you would be retiring 77-0. Are you going to pull a Justin Pennick with Curtis Riley milk challenge and not follow through with that?
I mean, I'm going to do it on the podcast. I might just not. I might stop. I said I'd retire the tweet. I think I'm going to retire the tweet.
Okay, all right. So you're being very lawyer-like right now. Okay, got it.
Well, that was what I meant. And, I was, I think I'm going to retire the tweet.
Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, because people on Twitter are stupid. Yeah.
Well, you know how it is. It's like with Joe Judge. It's like we've lost 2 games. And it's like, it's went from I really love the way this guy talks and explains things to now it's like, I hope he dies. I hate everything he says. Every word makes me irritated. And that's what happens with 77-0. When it's like, all right, dude, we keep on losing. I'm tired of this tweet. I mean, I thought they were going to win. That's why I put it on the line. Because I thought they were going to win.
I thought they were going to win too.
They let me down. So
they did technically win, but they also lost.
And I always get my one... Yeah.
It's one of the stupidest comments I've ever said.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense. There's a one time a year I get a 2-0 prediction. It's just every year there's 1 week where I'm just extremely down on the team, and that might be week 4 if we lose to the Falcons. So don't lose to the Falcons. We appreciate you guys. We'll be back on Friday with our Falcons preview. We appreciate you. We'll see you then. And until then, let's go Big Blue.